Aloha and welcome to Maunalua Past, Present, and Future. I'm Alex Roth from the marine conservation nonprofit Iuma Maunalua. Maunalua Bay is a cherished resource for so many people who use it commercially, recreationally, and more. Today we're going to talk a little bit about the history of Maunalua Bay, its past, the current condition of Maunalua Bay, its present, and of course the possibilities for the future of Maunalua Bay if we each take kuleana for the health of the bay. I'm here today with our guests Leighton Taylor and Mitch, who are both board members of Iuma Maunalua. Would you like to get us started by introducing yourselves?
Be happy to do that. Mitch, board member of Iuma Maunalua, founder. I think I've been at this for about 10 or 11 years. I moved to Niu, and Laura Thompson, who with her family are friends, called and said, you know, we're meeting to talk about Grandma's vision for a sustainable East Honolulu. Would you mind coming on Saturday morning? And I've never stopped going on Saturday mornings. That's how that started for me. And I'm currently a director of the Harold Castle Foundation and of Kaneohe Ranch Company. I'm mostly a retired community volunteer right now.
Thanks. And you, Leighton?
Well, I'm lucky that my wife and I live on Piko Drive, which is right next to the shore of part of Maunalua Bay. And I'm a retired marine biologist, so it's a great opportunity to stay involved with marine research and marine conservation, marine education. One of my best jobs I ever had was the director of the Waikiki Aquarium. So marine education is really part of what I love, and Iuma Maunalua allows me an opportunity to keep doing that.
Great. Well, thanks so much for joining us today. Leighton, you mentioned that you live on Piko, which is an area that Iuma Maunalua works with all the time for our community Huki projects. Can you tell us a little bit about what Piko looked like when you first moved there, and maybe some of the changes that have occurred in Piko?
Sure. Well, I can only tell you about the last decade or so, which is my first-hand experience, but I have neighbors that have lived there for 65 years, and they talk story a lot with me about what it was like, and I've read about what it was like in the 1800s, seen photos, done some work and so forth. When my wife and I first moved there early in this century, the place was kind of a mud pit, and it didn't smell good, and that was largely because upland erosion and siltation came down to the bay because of bad grading practices up on the hills. And in a normal situation, it would have flushed from the bay, but it got stuck there because of invasive algae, notably the leathery mudweed, so named because it loves mud, and it collects mud and actually changes the environment by its presence there. The mud stacks up and no oxygen can get down inside of it, so organisms grow that make stinky gases like methane, hydrogen sulfide, and so when you'd walk out there, you'd kind of slog around through the mud. You remember that, Mitch?
Sure do.
And that was very evident that it wasn't totally a healthy ecosystem. So some community volunteers got together and decided that if they could clean it up, they'd do it. And it worked as just community volunteers for a while, and then it got more and more organized, and as Iuma Maunalua came along, Mitch can tell you what they did to help the project. Right after
President Obama was elected, he was looking for shovel-ready projects to employ people. And Iuma Maunalua, mostly through one of our directors' husbands, wrote an application to clean alien algae off of 26 acres of reef in Maunalua Bay. And we applied for a grant under the Recovery Act, ARRA. We were awarded, to my delight and astonishment, $3.5 million.
Wow.
To hire people from the community to help clean the bay.
And I think we have some photos of the Great Huki Project, which you're referring to.
That's what we're talking about.
Which really had an incredible transformation for Piko Restoration Area. We have some of the photos coming up right now of some volunteers who go out into Piko restoration area and pull the invasive alien algae species.
And it's probably obvious, but huki, meaning pull in Hawaiian, is that people are pulling the weeds. They're pulling 3 species of invasive algae, and even though the federally funded project was completed in 2011 after pulling all of that limu out of there, which, by the way, we should explain, what do we do with that stuff when we pull those?
That's right. Many people have asked me.
It gets used by truck farmers in the Hawaii Kai area, Malama and Maunalua Bay area, to make compost and grow their vegetables. Malama Maunalua had it analyzed for heavy metals and all kinds of stuff to see if it was suitable. Turned by the university scientists, turned out to be, and I think the farmers love it. And so
it's great that we're reusing it, and we continue to pull out invasive alien algae all the time, and we're always looking for volunteers. So it's great that we're.
See, Alex, the amazing thing to me is we have around 3,000 volunteers a year that help us in the work that we do. Part of it is keeping the areas where the Great Huki Project worked clean, but part of it is expanding the areas where we've worked.
Absolutely. And one of the ways we're expanding the areas now is actually through a new project that, as you know, Mulama Maunalua and several other organizations are now hosting, and that's called Imua Maunalua, which is a community-based marine planning project. And essentially this project allows community members to come together and plan the future of Maunalua Bay. So can you folks tell us a little bit about some of the interesting and some of the objectives of the project?
If I can just start for a minute,
Go
Mitch,
ahead, Leighton.
to kind of connect the Hukis with the community plan. The main thing, I think, 2 successes of the Huki projects continuing is that the ecosystem has now been changed. It's not that stinking muddy place anymore. It's getting to be a healthier environment. There are more fishes coming back. Native algae are coming back. In fact, people fly over in airplanes now, I know, flying to Neighbor Island, look down and see all of this algae, and they think, oh, that didn't do any good at all. It's not the same algae that used to be there. It's native species coming back. There are still invasives there, and we're monitoring them, scientifically to see how fast they're coming back, if they're coming back, where they're coming back, how our Hukis affect them. So it changed the environment for the better, got the ecosystem back. But I think, importantly, and here's the link to Imua Maunalua, is those projects demonstrate that the community working together can solve problems and improve the environment and restore and heal the environment. And that one project demonstrated that, and it really stimulated the next step, which Mitch, you can explain about Imua Maunalua, because you're one of the creators.
There were 2 or 3 things that were happening that stimulated us to think about, well, what should we do about Maunalua Bay in a bigger way? And one of them was the worldwide voyage. Hokulea spends time, because Nainoa's from Niu, in Maunalua Bay, and it's sailing around the world to teach everyone the Hawaiian message of caring for a place. Well, if that's going all over the world, shame on us for not caring for our place at home.
Absolutely.
That's one. And then the second piece was NOAA was interested in changing its sanctuary rules to a multi-species rule from what was an exclusive humpback whale sanctuary. And Maunalua Bay in its entirety is currently in the humpback whale sanctuary. Some people think, oh, NOAA's reaching out for more territory. It's been the humpback whale sanctuary since the humpback whale sanctuary was created. But NOAA wants to try to figure out, well, what should it do to create a healthy environment for multi-species, not just humpback whales. And they stubbed their toe a little bit and issued some rules and regulations, got the community a little stirred up because it seemed like a top-down thing. And what we'd been wanting to do was a community-based process. And so we launched Imua Maunalua to be the community-based process that would engage the entire community about the future of the Bay.
And this has never been done before in Hawaii, is that
Right.
correct? I understand marine planning is something that has had success all over the world, and now we're introducing it to our state through this project.
Yeah, well, particularly in an urban area, which Maunalua Bay is. I mean, most marine sanctuaries, or this will not be a marine sanctuary, but most marine management plans are in usually not such an urbanized area. So there are a lot of communities, sub-communities involved in our communities who have separate interests, stakeholders, planners call them. And Imua Maunalua's goal is to include all of these stakeholders, spokesmen for them, so that we will develop the plan as a community and not have it directed from outside, because we think that's the best way communities can manage themselves, is to do it together.
Absolutely, and for each stakeholder, as you mentioned, to have their voice heard and to be part of an initiative that can really shape the future of the Bay. Mitch, can you tell me a little bit about how this is truly a community process?
Yeah, Alex, that's a really good point. The first thing that's been done is 28 stakeholder groups, and it's different kinds of users of the Bay, have been identified. And we are currently calling for nominations for people in the stakeholder groups. And then when the groups are nominated, the groups themselves will determine which member of their group will be on our community planning team. And a 28 member, or maybe 29 or 30, depending on whether we find new groups that aren't represented, that 28 member team will actually do the work of determining the plan. And Maunalua Maunalua will step back and facilitate and fundraise for the process, but won't be involved in decision making, because that's what makes it a true community-based process. Now, there's another thing that's really important, and that is both the Department of Land and Natural Resources and NOAA have agreed not to take action until they've heard the results of the community-based planning process. So we have a real opportunity for a change to have two significant government organizations help us with the results of our planning process.
In a way, all eyes are on our community to take action.
Right. That's exactly right.
And we do have, some support, some experts in science that will guide us throughout this process as the community members are making their recommendations, correct?
Right, we're lucky in Hawaii to have people with international experience in community planning. They've done it, especially community planning involving the marine environment and marine resources for recreation, commerce, fisheries, both recreational and commercial. And they've done this kind of work all around the world, in Asia, in Europe, in Mexico, South America. And so even though this is a grassroots community effort, because it's our community, we're really benefiting from the experience of people that have helped other communities do it all around the world. So I think we're fortunate in having that team.
Absolutely.
And really what we hope to do with our marine planning process is set an example for other communities so they can replicate the process and use it for other places.
Yeah, this is hopefully going to serve as a model for marine planning here in our state. And so what are some of the objectives of this project, and what are some of the issues that we're hoping to address?
See, we have to be careful about that because the community is going to be making those decisions.
That's right.
I will tell you what I've heard at neighborhood board meetings and what I've heard in community. Everyone's concerned about the amount of silt in the bay. I mean, some people refer to parts of the bay as mudflats. And that silt came down, as Leighton said, as a result of inappropriate grading practices and flood control that was designed to remove water from the land in the event of a flood, but wasn't designed to protect the marine environment. So we've got to deal with that in an appropriate way. And if we didn't have the benefit of our scientific advisors, and we didn't have the benefit of the state and federal government, I don't think we'd have a chance to do that. But I think we do have a chance. And I think that's something universally that I hear. Mm-hmm. And I mean, Leighton was talking about the results of the Great Huki and what you can see. I can look from the second floor of my house, and I live on the bay as well, and I can look out towards the 26 acres. My naked eye can see the difference between where we've done the work and where we haven't done the work. Mm-hmm. And it's a good feeling to look out over that. And I think what we've done is created a hope spot for the community where we realize if we can come together as a community and join hands and work together, we can make a big difference. And that's why I think the planning process will work.
Absolutely. And Piko is really just one area of in the entirety of Maunalua Bay. It stretches for 6.5 miles from Kahala to Portlock. So it's really a great opportunity to get the entire community of 60,000 involved.
Right, and it's not just the marine coastline, it also includes what technically is an estuary, but is really a marina, and that's Hawaii Kai, and fish ponds that still remain, which are being cared for by other stewards in the community, which are partners with us. And where, just talk about history for a little bit, where Mitch lives used to be a fish pond.
Both Niuiki Circle, where I live, and Wailupe Circle, both were formerly fish ponds. And you can find photos in a lot of books that'll show you East Honolulu with both areas as fish ponds.
Wow.
You know, I have to say selfishly as a marine scientist, one of the things I hope will come out of all of this community talking to one another is more knowledge about the Bay. I mean, there's been some scientific studies of the Bay by UH scientists. HPU students are doing projects right now. And, but the people that really know about it are fish people, surfers, boaters, people that are out there on the Bay, and they see things that somebody with a formal science program may miss because they're not there on the right day or whatever. So if we can get everybody's knowledge together in one place talking to each other, I mean, I know fishers don't like to say where their secret spot is, but it would be nice to know where they're catching fish and so forth. That could help all of us, you know, because having eyes in the environment, being in the environment is, and knowing it, it's crucial to helping protect it and to heal it. So I think more information about how people know and love the Bay is going to come out of the process. And that's why it's important to have as many people involved as we can.
Yeah, like you said, it's a really great avenue for getting people out in the community who really understand Maunalua Bay to come and share their knowledge, share their stories, and create a broader sense of understanding for the entire community.
See, the other part of it, Alex, is the 28 or so people on the community planning team, those will be the decision makers, the shapers of the process. Process will run probably about 2 years.
But they'll be speaking for their group, right?
They'll be speaking for their group, but there's going to be a number of opportunities for people in the community that aren't participating at that level to come and engage the process. And so if you didn't want to do the work of being a member of the community planning team, which involves a pretty big commitment, there's going to be other opportunities as the process goes forward to have everyone share their knowledge with the process.
Oh, absolutely. All of the community planning team meetings will be open to the public. We'll have community listening sessions, talk story sessions, and as well as the members on the community planning team will have alternates as well. So each time there's a planning meeting, there will always be representation from that stakeholder group. And of course, there'll be opportunities for the community members to let their voice be heard. They can talk to their stakeholder representative, or they can also visit our website at www.imuamaunalua.org. to find out more about when these planning team meetings are. They can also there's a public discussion forum where they can submit their comments and share a little bit about their knowledge about the Bay. So I think that'll be a really great way for community members to get involved, no matter at what phase of the project they're in or how engaged they want to be. There are definitely ways to be committed there.
There are varying opinions about what condition the Bay is in right now. As I said, before the Huki, there was no doubt that it didn't smell good and it was unpleasant to walk in certain areas of it, and that's been reversed and it's better now. There have been some studies that suggest that the reefs are diminished, the standing crop of fish is diminished. Other people say, well, you just got to know where to look for the fish. And there have been scientific transects done that show that the reefs in Maunalua Bay have the lowest standing crop of any reefs in the state. Some people argue with that, but it's pretty clear that there aren't as many fish as there used to be. And so part of the hope of healing the Bay is that people will all work together to assure that the Bay gets healthier, so that our grandkids, your grandkids, will have plenty of fish to catch and plenty of fish to see and plenty of clear water to stand up, paddle on, or drive their jet ski or whatever. And because it's a resource that we need to protect. And it's not as good as it used to be, but it's going to be great in the future if we work together to do that.
Sure. I mean, I'm sure everyone wants to go into this project hoping that Maunalua Bay will be better in the future. I mean, this is a great opportunity for people to think about what we want to see for the future of Maunalua Bay and, of course, how we're going to get there.
Right, and here's a chance to participate. It really is. And in the 60s, long ago, people used to say, if you're not part of the solution, you're part of the problem. And it might be tempting for people to stand back and say, well, that's a great idea, but I don't think it's going to work. Well, it will work, but it'll work a lot better if everybody gets in and contributes to the process. Because it's our community. All of us live here and we all want it to be the best we can make it be.
Sure. Mitch, would you like to add to that?
Well, what I'd say is we need to do our best in a process to respect all the people from Maunalua, especially those willing to participate, and respect all the divergent views. Because until we've heard all the views, we can't do some thinking about how to bring those divergent views together and work towards a real plan.
Mm-hmm.
Just if we have a little bit of time to talk about the past, I love to quote my neighbor, Karen Gleason, who is my age, but grew up...
A youngster.
Yeah, grew up on Piko and remembers what it was like from early days. She was living there when the tsunami that affected Hilo so badly in 1946 washed over that sandbar that is Piko. But she found fairly recently a little mimeograph sheet that her dad had kept, which was kind of the rules for fishing in Piko area and on the reef out there. And one of them was that you couldn't take, I think it was more than 6 lobsters a week per family. And I don't know when the last time I saw a lobster.
Yeah, I was about to say.
And then the list went on. There was like uhu, parrotfish, and mempachi, all kinds of stuff that are hard to find out there now. And, this was back in 1960, 1970, 1980. There were less people fishing then, of course. There had been less siltation. But those reefs could probably sustain that many fish again if we all got to it and helped it heal.
That's our hope. One of the things that's really interesting to me, Alex, is, and I'm like Leighton, older, friends of mine, my age, that grew up in and around Maunalua Bay, tell me stories about konohiki. Well, I didn't think anybody my age could remember konohiki. I thought konohiki was something that was like 150 years ago. But before statehood, there were still konohiki managing waters, and Maunalua Bay had active konohiki. And that's how the rules that Leighton was talking about got created. And, you know, I have stories from friends about huge amounts of fish biomass that are no longer there. And so that gives me hope that we'll figure out a way as a community to return to that process.
So do you think we'll be returning to the rules?
Well, I think that's up to the process. I think we need to return. How do we increase the fish biomass in the bay is a question. Maunalua Maunalua does not pretend to know the answer and doesn't pretend to know what the community wants. And that's why we're doing the community-based process. I think that will roll out of that process.
Sure. And that's exactly why we want more people to get involved and share what they think the solution might be. And we can come together and create those solutions and put the studies together so we can get those solutions.
Right.
Leighton, Mitch, I want to thank you again so much for coming again today to talk about Imua Maunalua. It's a really great opportunity. And of course, we'd like to thank Livable Hawaii Kai Hui for inviting us to come host this show today. Like I mentioned, if you are interested in getting involved with Imua Maunalua, you can definitely visit our website at www.imuamaunalua.org. You can also visit us and look at our social media platforms on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Imua Maunalua. And as I mentioned previously, there are many ways to get involved. You can join one of your community groups in the community planning team, make your voice be heard, share your stories, share your knowledge about Maunalua Bay, visit and attend our community planning meetings, our talk story sessions, and share your comments on the website.
We look forward to welcoming everyone that wants to participate to the process. There's really a role for everybody in the community here, and there'll be a democratic process to figure out who the community planning team is, but even the people that aren't selected to be members of the community planning team, which involves a lot of work, can still participate very meaningfully in the process. So we really hope, I really hope, and I want to invite everybody in the community to help us with the project, because that's how we'll get a great result.
Absolutely. That's exactly what makes it a community-based marine planning project. Thank you so much for listening about Imua Maunalua, and we hope to see you next time.
Aloha.